Welcome to Bliss in the House Sunday. This is Stasia Bliss with a mouthful of authenticity. Playing behind me the beautiful Dracula, some of his own original works. Today we talk about and explore the alchemy of relationship and how to transcend with the supposed other, and also to transmute the dross of what we see in our reflection there. So I'd like to start out with just taking a moment to breathe in. Consider the self in this moment as the one true relationship. So in life, in our day-to-day, we have many relationships. We have the relationship with family members, friends, co-workers, perhaps children, significant others. You know, we've all heard this conversation again and again, and we're all on some level or another striving to find that magical relationship, or maybe we're in a relationship and we just like to see that relationship become the magical one. So today I would like to talk about the alchemy of relationship. And, you know, I'm going to get really authentic with you today about that and about my own personal experiences and struggles with relationship. So as we start this new year, 2015, I think it's fair to say that each and every one of us, myself included, would like to enter into all of the ventures of life with some new head on our shoulders, some new sense of insight, new heart, new energy flowing in the direction of perhaps what we may have considered our old areas of focus, our old interests. And I think it's safe to assume that relationship will always be one of those areas. Just like the trees in the forest, there are roots that interconnect the roots to one another, so that the forest has a way to communicate, an interconnectivity, if you will, a sort of relay system of, you know, the happenings and goings on in the forest. And even in most forests, there is the mushroom that runs throughout and acts as the nervous system of the forest and interconnects. In humanity and between each other, we also must find this web of interconnectivity, this ability to empathize and to find communication and strength in the other. And I start here because as I always like to come back to the bigger picture of there really only being the self, there really only being the one life that is, in one way or another, fragmented itself out into the many, manifested the one into all these various parts and personages and individualizations, if you will, that the forest itself is one. There is the forest. We can name the forest. The redwood forest, for example. And humanity, we could name as the manifestation of the one on this particular plane, on this planet. And so as we look into the eyes of the other, into the eyes of one another, the children, the women, the men, the experiences that we have, our goal is to refine the vision, to see the one, to see the oneness, the other as the self. To really begin to see that oneness to see the light that we recognize as our own. And, we've got to give a little bit of leeway here to the self, to the other, because we've all come through this veil. We've all come through in the process of stepping down into density, into this plane of existence. We've all forgotten on one level or another, or perhaps completely, that this is true. We have forgotten the oneness in its totality, the ultimate state of self. And we are here to help remember, to help ourselves remember. And ourselves is found in the other. Our completeness, our totality as the oneness is completed in the recognition of that in the other person. And so as we come together in these relationships, and I'm going to emphasize the more intimate relationships, but this is true in all relationships. As we come together in these intimate relationships, we are really asking for that deep probe, for that deep cleaning, if you will, for that transmutation to occur. That is like the miracle that lifts the veil more quickly, that gets really to the root of what's causing the forgetfulness. And so throughout our lives, from the time we were born and even carrying on the patterns of those who brought us into this world, we have all these blocks, all these layers, all these things, and I've spoke about this before, talking about yoga nidra and so forth, that we carry these subconscious patterns. And these, if you will, are the veils that were created from the time that we were born, that brought us to this state that keep us from the remembrance of who we are. Because as a baby, a baby can't talk, but a baby has full knowledge, I believe, remembrance of the place of oneness, does not really see separation, and really sees, especially the mother, as that source field. And so all these programs, all these things that are given to us in our minds, these beliefs, these whatever the sayings happen to be that are given to us by those around us, become like these veils. They become like the sheets that separate us from the remembrance of who we are, from the oneness. And so as we get into intimate relationship, the real purpose that we would even draw or attract somebody into that role is because we know that they have the potentiality to remove those veils for us. I truly believe that we feel this attraction to another person, that it's a magnetic attraction because this other person, this other embodiment of self, if you will, has the capacity to pull the veils for us, to lift them. And that's not always a pretty or an easy process. It's quite delicate. So, having seen this happen in many others around me and in myself, in intimate relationship, I want to address how alchemy is not always a beautiful process. It's beautiful, yes, in the bigger perspective, but I would like to address the difference in just a regular, everyday Joe who's running around in their program, who's in a relationship and going into their 9-to-5 job and eating food out of a box and watching nightly TV. That relationship is going to be very contrasting to someone who has chosen to walk around awake in their life, to explore consciousness ideas, to work on themselves, to do meditation, inner work, to constantly look at how they are responsible for their lives and to not get into the position of victimhood and blame. So these are two different relationships. Now, these two relationships can appear to act out the same sorts of dramas, the same sorts of things are going to come up and are going to play out. But it's how they are handled and what the perspective is around these that's really going to determine whether this is an evolutionary, alchemical relationship, or if this is not, and if it is something that cannot be worked through. So let's take, for example, what looks like fighting. what looks like disagreement in communication. So you have two people and they're mirroring for each other because the two people are really the one. The one is drawn in someone who is very close to their side on the facet of the one diamond consciousness, if you will. And so that person is starting to reflect back where there might be any inclusions, where there might be not bright spots. And so we do this for each other. So let it be known and brought into awareness that what you hear coming out of the mouth of the other at you, seemingly, is really them talking to themselves about what they see of themselves. And same for the self. What I hear coming out of my mouth to the supposed other, at them, about them, is really about me. That I am seeing reflected about my own consciousness somewhere in there. That I am getting to bring up and heal somehow. So when we start to take responsibility for that, the fighting changes. The communication breakdown. Now, both individuals have to be aware of this, or it's going to be an impasse, and there's going to be blame, and there's going to be, it's not going to continue in the positive way that it could. But if both individuals are aware that they are helping the other to reflect, the alchemical process of this is that in the light of the consciousness of the other, the dross or the heavy, the leaden awarenesses, the blocks in our emotional body, in our mental body, the heaviness, the patterns that we're carrying that aren't helpful are going to surface. They're going to be brought up like someone stirring up mucky water, and all that dirt's going to come to the surface. And it's not so the other can say, look how terrible you are. And if that's happening, well, that's, not in the same container that I'm talking about here of an alchemical relationship. But to look at it and, we can identify it for ourselves. This is not pretty. But there it is. There's my stuff. I'm looking at it. I'm hearing myself scream it out. And now I'm going to allow that to disperse. And instead, I'm going to change what I'm seeing into something new. And so the goal here is not to keep repeating the same arguments, the same issues, that when they come up, there is an insight gained. There is a resolution. And the one that's holding the space for that is going to help find that for the other just the same as you would for them. So is that clear? The alchemy of relationship is all about bringing up the garbage. So if the garbage comes up and everyone wants to just run to peace and not address it and go sit and close their eyes and la it out of the way, well, that's not what I'm talking about. So sometimes the alchemy doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look pretty. And in my own experience and experience of those around me, if you're willing to go through the fire of it, if you're willing to break down to the very core of your being, to cry all the tears, to bring up all the triggers and all the fears, then those things can be transcended. They can be transcended through the experience with the other. And really, that's the only way they can. Because when we are alone, when we are doing the solo thing, yes, we can do a lot of personal work. We can identify certain things and shift them, but they are always tested in the fire of relationship. They're always brought to be tried to see if we really have removed them in the reflected arms of the beloved. So, perhaps in those difficult moments, I'm seeing this more and more, that as life is transcending the dross of human suffering, as we're moving to a higher octave of communication and of existence, that more and more of these sacred relationships, these alchemical relationships, are coming face to face with all the yucks, not only in the two people. I truly believe that conscious individuals in relationship are acting as proxies for the planet, for all relationship. Yes. So that's a heavy burden sometimes to carry. If you are a conscious individual in relationship, if you both are, then, chances are the stuff you two are working through is not just your issues. You have kind of opted in, if you will, to the proxy program by being conscious in your relationship. That all of the issues surrounding relationship on this planet need to be cleaned. They need to be clarified. They need to be washed out and purified and elevated. And the only way that can truly happen is if conscious individuals do the work together and let that process move through them and purify through them. Because, people that aren't doing that are just remaining stuck, are just continuing to replay old patterns, one relationship after another, or within the same relationship again and again. And, consciousness cannot move through that sort of stuckness. So, as conscious couples in sacred relationship, in an alchemical relationship, move through issue after issue and stay committed to the process, to the higher purpose, then I truly believe all relationships on the planet are healing and elevating their purpose. So that's super exciting. And if you're one of those people, I want to say thank you, because I know it's not easy. It's very challenging. I've been in a very challenging relationship for some time now, and the most challenging part about it is, and you might resonate with this, is it doesn't sound like me. It doesn't sound like what I would say, knowing myself as I do. It doesn't sound like how I would handle things, how I would express myself. I don't imagine that I would cry that many tears over this particular happening. But I have to keep reminding myself this is not just about me. This is about a higher process of clearing. And so as I cry the tears, if I can keep in mind that I am also crying for all the other women who find themselves in relationships that they just don't know how to move through what's coming up for them, that I'm crying tears for the feminine, that the masculine in my reality, that my partner is playing out, not just my partner, not just the father of my children, but also is playing out, and my child knocks at the door right as I say that, but he is also playing out the masculine that is in the process of awakening right now. And I have to remember and give credit to him for playing that role, that the masculine on this planet is in the process of a great awakening, my sisters who are listening. And if we can hold space for him, and sometimes it is challenging because we feel like we have been doing that, we have been being conscious, we have been, but we're also working through the emotional ups and downs of the feminine, and in a lot of ways we're doing that for the masculine, because the masculine just cannot simply process all of that. There is a lot to the feminine side of reality that is second nature to women. And so as men are awakening to those parts of self, sometimes it is highly uncomfortable, and they are not able to fully integrate all of that. And so as we take that on and say, yes, that I will continue to be the mother figure, be the sister figure, be the woman here that holds space for the masculine to awaken, to develop into the strong-footed male that he can be. They say that a strong woman is behind every strong man, and that is true in such a profound way. Such a profound way. I want to sit with that for a moment. The woman holds the creative force. The feminine holds the creative potential, and she need not brag about that or flaunt that. That is a silent offering. That is a gift that she gives, the feminine gives to the masculine, And the masculine has a very different role. He is a space holder. He is a connecting rod to the divine. And yes, in his most empowered state, he stands as the portal for that energy to flow through to the feminine, that she might bring creation into manifestation. So when it's working right, when it's plugged in, then masculine is holding that rod to the divine, bringing energy down, sending it to feminine to manifest her creations. You know, and in some ways we've sort of had it like a little twisted or backwards, or, you know, like the man's supposed to go to work and bring home money and woman's supposed to stay home and nurture children, you know, like, okay, some elements of that are still okay, perhaps, but that might change completely, you know, that might be completely different in this new model of reality that we're moving into, in the alchemy of the true masculine and feminine. And so, as this process is happening, where the masculine is learning his role, and let's not forget, we each have masculine and feminine inside of us. It's not just being played out in the embodiment of man and the embodiment of woman, but inside self, that masculine mind is really, it's elevated above the human mind. It's really our consciousness, our ability to connect with source, that is the space holder for the rest of our being, that we are drawing down energy from, you know, and down maybe is not the appropriate word, but we're drawing in from all of life, from source energy through, you know, our conscious minds, through the place where we have been deferring to reason and logic, but that's not really it. And we're channeling it into the feminine, into our creativity, into our non-linear expressions. Emotion kind of is the bridge for that. As we feel a lot of emotion coming in, we know that it's time to channel that energy into something productive. So here's the clue to all of us. Okay, so when this so-called fighting is going on, or a strong energy is coming in from, let's say, masculine, let's say even the embodiment of man may be coming and bringing that, and there's a strong sensation of energy coming in, and it's causing the initial reaction for feminine, maybe the woman, to move into a state of cry, of emotion, of whatever it is that feels emotional. This, I'm going to suggest, is the clue that energy consciousness is flowing in and wants to be put into a creative venture now. So rather than going and bawling your eyes out, instead channel that. Don't take it personally. Put it down on paper. Sing it, dance it, put it into some kind of creative action. And this can be in the reverse as well. If woman is channeling consciousness, if it's coming through as a strong vibration of, sounds like mind, but it's coming from a higher place, and you can feel it in your body, masculine, maybe it's igniting what might feel like anger, what might feel like defensiveness. If it can be associated with an emotion, then it generally is being ignited by mind. So rather than taking the false expression of that and responding with emotion, take that and create. And, you know, we ought not be offended when our partner hears us strongly speaking and then goes and creates with that. It is not a personal, you know, I'm ignoring you and doing something else. It is actually, it is a thank you. It is a gratitude message that you have inspired me into greatness. So, the alchemy of relationship, it's all depending on our perspective. It's all depending on how much we can elevate our vision here and look at what's happening, because the same things could be acting out and we could look at them from a lower level. We could say this relationship is abusive. We could say there's too much drama. We could say I feel uncomfortable when she's crying all the time. We could say all these things and they would be true in an unconscious relationship. We could say we need to step in, intervene between these two. It just is not a healthy thing. Or we can support both in our own lives and in the lives of those around us, when we know that conscious individuals are engaging in a process of transmutation, transcension, that two people are brought together for the purpose of the healing of the wholeness. And yes, we have been deeply entrenched in some very, you could say unhealthy patterns on this plane. And those need to be untangled by those warriors of consciousness which are here at this time. And that's what I feel that I am, a warrior of consciousness. And the people that I've been in relationship with and who I'm in relationship with at this time is also a warrior of consciousness. Now, they may not speak the exact same language of me about it, but if we both agree that this is something we're not getting out of so easily, that there is still work to be done, that there is, a goal here of a higher vibration of living, that we can agree that we're going to get through the yuck because we want to get to the promised land, so to speak. So as we can continue to move through and elevate the discomfort, the uncomfortable times, that we can continue to step back and see the higher picture, that we can let go of our personal, fears and attachments to what we think that it should look like. Even if we have to keep speaking them, even if we have to keep demanding and asking for them, so that we are hearing ourselves say it enough to go, you know what, there's a higher expression of that. There's a different way that this can look. And I'm calling it out. I'm asking for the love. I'm asking for the commitment aloud, because that is what humanity has been doing in relationship. I'm saying, I want you to love me more like this. I want you to show up for me. I want you to provide for me, because I'm really speaking the voice of relationship on the planet. Relationship has been saying, hey, I need you to show up for me. But what we're really saying is, I need to show up for myself. I need to recognize the oneness coming through me, that all that I could need in this life is provided from an infinite source. And all I need to do is tune into that and trust in it and align myself with it. And I know that my life will begin to radiate that abundance from an inner source, from an inner light. And when that happens in me, guarantee around me, that's going to happen more and more and more. The people and beings that are around me, that are attracted to me, that are in my life, my relationship is going to transcend itself and become a more holy place, a more holy ground. So, the dross, it may look ugly, but it is a stepping stone. It is like the compost. It is the poop, if you will. I can't believe I just said poop on the show, but it is the waste product of old waves of consciousness. And as we allow it to surface, as we allow it to come up, be lifted off, the soup of the soul is stirred, and we come to a place of greater perspective. We come to a place of more divine love and communion. And the best way to do this between two people is to always move into service, always move into gratitude. And when we can serve, we can release. And when we can receive that service graciously and recognize the other person is really doing their best to let go, to forgive self, and it isn't about you, then the healing can be so profound. So we're coming to the end of the show today. Thank you so much for joining me. My plan is to do this at this point on Sundays, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's a stage of bliss. Bliss in the house Sunday. I hope you found a mouthful of authenticity that you can utilize in your life. You can find me at blissinthehouse.com. I also have a blog running there. Thank you so much for being an aspect of me interested in more fully embodying the divine in your relationship. Have a beautiful day. Blessings and namaste.